Billionaire accidentally leaves a bag full of cash in a park. The poor boy did what no one expected. The black luxury sedan disappeared down the tree-lined road, its engine purring softly as if nothing in the world could ever go wrong for the man inside it. On the wooden bench beneath the old oak tree, a black leather duffel bag sat alone, its zipper half open. Inside, thick stacks of cash pressed against one another, edges crisp, bands untouched. A few minutes earlier, that bag had rested beside one of the richest men in the city. Now, it waited in silence, unguarded, unnoticed, while fate crept closer on the small, worn sneakers of a boy who had nothing. Eli stopped short when he saw it. His breath caught, eyes widening as if the world itself had just cracked open. His heart hammered so loudly he was sure someone else must hear it. He took a cautious step forward, then another, the way one approaches something dangerous or magical. When he saw the money clearly, his knees almost buckled. He had never seen so much cash in one place. Not on television. Not in his imagination. For one terrifying, electrifying second, Eli thought the universe was playing a cruel joke on him. Eli was 9 years old. And hunger was a familiar companion. His shirt was torn at the collar, stained from days of wear. His jeans were too short, cuffs frayed and damp from the morning dew. He had come to the park not to play, but to wait for his mother to finish her cleaning shift nearby. Wait for the ache in his stomach to dull. Wait for a day to pass without trouble. The bag changed everything. He glanced around. The park was quiet, early afternoon calm settling over the grass. A jogger passed at the far end. A woman pushed a stroller near the fountain. No one was looking at the bench. Eli's fingers trembled as he reached for the bag. This could fix everything. A voice whispered in his head. With that money, his mother wouldn't cry at night anymore. They wouldn't have to choose between rent and food. No more borrowed meals. No more pretending he wasn't hungry at school. The bag felt heavy when he lifted it, heavy with possibility, heavy with temptation. He opened it wider. The smell of leather and paper filled his nose. His mouth went dry. The stacks were real, thick, endless. Eli had no idea what $1 million looked like. But he knew this was more money than his entire world combined. His hands clenched around the strap. Then another voice spoke quieter, steadier, older than his years. This isn't yours. Eli swallowed hard. His chest burned as if he were running uphill. He thought of his mother, Mara, scrubbing floors until her hands cracked, always telling him the same thing when life felt unfair. Being poor doesn't mean being small, she would say. The only thing we truly own is what we choose to do when no one's watching. Eli looked back down the path. The black car was gone. Whoever owned the bag might never come back. Or they might come back desperate, panicked, afraid. Eli sat on the bench, the bag beside him, his small legs swinging above the ground. Minutes crawled by. Every second felt like a test. People passed. No one noticed the bag. No one noticed him. Across town, Victor Langston noticed. Victor Langston did not forget things. Not meetings. Not numbers. Not details. That precision was how he became a billionaire by 45. But as his driver merged onto the highway, Victor felt a sudden, icy jolt in his chest. The bag. Turn around, Victor said sharply. The driver glanced in the mirror. Sir? The duffel bag, Victor snapped. The black one. On the bench. Silence filled the car. The driver's face paled. I thought security loaded it. Victor's jaw tightened. That bag wasn't just cash. It was unregistered emergency capital money he was supposed to deliver personally for a quiet acquisition. If it was gone... His phone was already in his hand. Calls went out. Orders barked. The calm billionaire vanished. replaced by a man who knew exactly how fragile control really was. Back in the park, Eli stood up. He could leave. He could run. No one would stop him. No one would even know. Instead, he did something no one expected. He dragged the bag behind the bench and sat on it, wrapping his arms around it like a shield. If someone came back, he would be there. If someone tried to take it, he would shout. His heart pounded, fear and resolve twisting together in his chest. An hour passed. Then sirens. Eli flinched as two black SUVs rolled into the park, followed by a police cruiser. Men in suits stepped out, scanning the area with sharp eyes. People stared. Whispers spread. One of the men saw the bench. He froze. "There," he said quietly. Eli looked up as footsteps approached. He stood slowly, hands raised the way he'd seen on TV, even though no one had told him to. I didn't take anything," he said quickly, voice shaking. "I was just keeping it safe." The men stopped a few feet away. "Where did you get the bag, kid?" one asked. "It was already there," Eli said. "I was waiting." Moments later, Victor Langston himself stepped forward. He took in the sight before him. A poor boy, worn clothes, dirt-smudged face, sitting guard over a fortune that could have changed his life forever. Victor felt something unfamiliar tighten in his chest. "Is it all there?" Victor asked quietly. Eli nodded. "I didn't touch it. I promise." Victor unzipped the bag. The stacks were untouched. The park went silent. Victor looked at Eli, really looked at him, as if trying to understand a language he had forgotten how to speak. "Why didn't you run?" Victor asked. Eli hesitated, then shrugged. "Because it wasn't mine." That simple answer hit harder than any loss ever could. Victor straightened slowly. In that moment, standing in a public park with a child who had every reason to choose himself, Victor Langston realized something terrifying and profound. Money had never been the measure of a man, and the smallest person in the park had just proven it. Asterisk. Victor Langston had stood in boardrooms worth more than entire neighborhoods, had stared down hostile takeovers and government investigations without blinking, but the silence that followed the boy's words unsettled him more than any courtroom ever had, because it wasn't mine. The sentence echoed in his head as if the park itself had spoken. Around them, security stood frozen, unsure whether to treat the boy as a witness or a miracle. The police officer cleared his throat, waiting for instruction. Joggers slowed, parents stopped, phones quietly lifted. Something important was happening, and everyone felt it. Victor closed the bag carefully and handed it to his head of security, but his eyes never left Eli. "What's your name?" Victor asked. "Eli," the boy replied. His voice was steadier now, though his hand still shook. "How long have you been here, Eli?" "I don't know," he said honestly. "Long enough to get hungry again." That answer, casual, uncomplaining, landed like a blow. Victor glanced at the torn shirt, the thin arms, the shoes that had long ago given up pretending to fit. This wasn't a child acting noble for praise. This was a child surviving. "Where's your family?" Victor asked. "My mom's working," Eli said. "She cleans offices nearby. I wait here after school." Victor looked toward the skyline. One of those buildings belonged to him. Something cold slid down his spine. The police officer stepped forward. "Sir, if everything is accounted for, we can clear the scene." Victor raised a hand. "Give us a moment." The officer hesitated, then nodded. Stepping back, Victor crouched until he was eye level with Eli. It was an unfamiliar position, humbling. "Deliberate." "Eli," he said quietly, "do you know what was in that bag?" "A lot of money," Eli said. "More than I can count. Enough to change your life." Eli nodded once. "Yeah, and you still stayed." Eli looked confused. Someone would come back for it. Victor felt his throat tighten. He had built an empire on foresight, on predicting human behavior. Yet this child had defied every model he had ever trusted. What would you have done? Victor asked carefully. If no one came back? Eli thought for a long moment. Then he said, I'd still wait. Why? Because my mom says doing the right thing isn't about what happens after. Victor straightened abruptly, turning away for a second. He pressed his thumb against his ring, a habit he hadn't realized he still had. Years ago, someone had said something similar to him, that someone he had buried beneath ambition. Sir? His head of security murmured. Media starting to gather. Victor nodded. Clear them. He turned back to Eli. Would you come with me for a bit? He asked. Just to talk. Eli's eyes flicked toward the path his mother would come from later. I can't go far. You won't, Victor said. I promise. After a moment, Eli nodded. Inside the SUV, Eli sat stiffly, hands folded in his lap, as if afraid the leather seats might reject him. Victor watched him in the reflection of the tinted glass. How old are you? Victor asked. 9. What do you want to be when you grow up? Eli blinked. I don't know. Something where my mom doesn't have to clean anymore. The answer struck harder than any accusation. Victor exhaled slowly. You're a good son. Eli shrugged. She's a good mom. They drove only a few blocks to a cafe Victor rarely noticed, despite passing it daily. Inside, people froze when they recognized him. Orders stopped mid-sentence. Victor ignored them. Order whatever you want, he told Eli. Eli stared at the menu like it was written in another language. Anything? He whispered. Anything. Eli pointed carefully. That, and that. And juice. Victor smiled faintly. Good choices. As Eli ate, Victor made a call. Asterisk. I need you to pull employee records for our downtown janitorial contractors, he said. Find Amara, last name unknown. Works evenings. There was a pause. Yes, now. Victor watched Eli devour the food with quiet gratitude, not greed. No hoarding. No rush. Just relief. You didn't tell anyone about the bag? Victor asked. Eli shook his head. People would take it. Even though you could have taken it? Eli looked up, genuinely puzzled. Why would I? Victor laughed softly, a sound so rare his assistant nearly dropped her phone. That laugh held no humor, only wonder. Minutes later, his phone buzzed. Found her? His assistant said. Mara Ellis, cleaning contractor. Single parent. Victor closed his eyes. Ellis. The universe had a sense of irony after all. Does she need work? Victor asked. A pause. She needs everything. Victor looked at Eli, who was carefully wiping crumbs from the table so he wouldn't make a mess. I think, Victor said slowly, we should meet your mother. Eli froze. Is she in trouble? No, Victor said quickly. She did something right. Eli nodded, though worry lingered in his eyes. They returned to the park just as the sun dipped lower, shadows stretching long across the grass. Mara arrived breathless minutes later. Panic etched into her face when she saw the cars, the suits, her son standing beside a stranger too well dressed to belong in her world. Eli, she cried, pulling him close. What happened? Eli looked up at Victor. I waited. Mara followed his gaze, confusion turning to fear. Ma'am, Victor said gently, stepping forward. Your son did something extraordinary today. She stiffened. If he did something wrong, he did everything right. Victor explained. As the story unfolded, Mara's hand flew to her mouth. Tears welled, then spilled freely. She looked at Eli as if seeing him for the first time. You could have, her voice broke. You could have taken it. Eli shrugged. It wasn't ours. Mara pulled him into a fierce embrace, sobbing openly now. The watching crowd fell silent. Victor felt something shift deep inside him. Mara, he said. Your son reminded me of something I lost a long time ago. She looked up. Worry. I would like to help your family, Victor continued. Not as charity. As recognition. Her eyes widened. Sir, I don't understand. Victor met her gaze steadily. Neither did I until today. He paused, but this is only the beginning. The words hung in the air heavy with promise. With consequence. Because Victor Langston had not just found his lost money. He had found a truth powerful enough to dismantle the life he had built. And what he chose to do next would change all of them. Forever. The following morning, Victor Langston stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse office, watching the city wake beneath him. For the first time in decades, the view felt unfamiliar, not because the skyline had changed, but because he had. On his desk lay a single photo his assistant had printed overnight. Eli, sitting in the cafe, juice mustache and all, eyes wide with wonder. It didn't belong among balance sheets and acquisition briefs, yet Victor hadn't told anyone to remove it. He couldn't. The board meeting began at 9 sharp. 12 executives took their seats, confident, sharp, ruthless, the kind of people Victor had once admired above all else. Today their voices sounded hollow. We'll finalize the merger by Friday, one director said. We just need your approval. Victor nodded absently. And the PR fallout from yesterday? Another asked. The park incident is trending. People are calling it staged. Victor's jaw tightened. It wasn't. Of course not, the man replied smoothly. But perception, Victor stood. The room fell silent. I built this company believing people are predictable, Victor said. That money reveals who they truly are. He picked up the photo. I was wrong. Murmurs rippled through the room. There's a janitorial contractor named Mara Ellis, Victor continued. Effective immediately, her contract is terminated. A director frowned. Sir, terminating low-level staff over a viral. She's not terminated, Victor said calmly. She's promoted. The room froze. Victor turned to his coup. Create a new role. Facilities Oversight Manager. Full salary. Benefits. Education stipend. Sir, the coup hesitated. That position doesn't exist. It does now. Victor's gaze hardened. Any objections? No one spoke. Good, Victor said. Meeting adjourned. As the executives filed out confused, unsettled, Victor felt no regret. Only clarity. Across town, Mara Ellis sat at a small kitchen table with Eli, staring at a phone she didn't know how to answer. It had rung 3 times already. Mom, Eli whispered, what if it's bad? She swallowed. Then we face it together. She answered. By the end of the call, her knees gave out. Eli caught her hand. Mom? They offered me a job, she said, tears spilling freely. A real one. With benefits. Eli blinked. Like forever money? She laughed through sobs. Like hope money. That afternoon, Victor visited the building Mara used to clean, the same one he owned. The manager stiffened when he saw him. Mr. Langston, we weren't expecting. Show me her route, Victor said. They walked the halls. Victor noticed details he'd never seen before. Scuffed baseboards, flickering lights, fingerprints on glass. Places people like him never truly looked. She worked nights, the manager said. Never complained. Victor nodded. Did anyone thank her? The man hesitated. I don't know. Victor stopped walking. That, he said quietly, is the problem. Days passed, but the story refused to fade. News outlets dug deeper. Comment section split in two: those who praised Eli and those who accused Victor of exploiting a child for publicity. Victor read every comment. Then he did something no one expected. He scheduled a press conference. Room buzzed with anticipation as cameras flashed. Victor stepped to the podium alone, no legal team, no prepared statement. "I lost a bag of money," he began. "That's true." Reporters leaned forward. "But what I found," Victor continued, "was worth far more." He told them everything. No polish. No spin. The waiting. The honesty. The boy who didn't take what wasn't his. "This is not a feel-good story," Victor said firmly. "It's an indictment." Murmurs spread. "An indictment of a world where a child has to choose between hunger and integrity," Victor said. "And where his integrity is treated as an anomaly." A reporter shouted, "What are you doing about it?" Victor didn't hesitate. "I'm changing the rules." He announced the Langston Integrity Initiative, scholarships for children of low-income workers, guaranteed advancement tracks for contracted staff, anonymous ethics rewards, no publicity, no conditions, and, Victor added, pausing, "I am stepping down as CEO." The room exploded. Victor raised a hand. "Effective immediately." Cameras flashed wildly. "I will remain as chairman," he said. "But this company needs leadership shaped by the future, not haunted by the past." One question cut through the noise. "Is this because of the boy?" Victor smiled faintly. "It's because of who I was before I met him." That evening, Victor sat alone in his penthouse, the city lights dimmer somehow. His phone buzzed, a message from Mara. "Mara, Eli wants to know if doing the right thing always changes everything." Victor stared at the screen for a long time before typing. "Victor, not always. But sometimes it changes you. And that's enough." Moments later, another message arrived. "Eli, thank you for giving my mom a job. I'm gonna work hard too." Victor felt his throat tighten. "Victor, you already have." He set the phone down and looked out at the city one last time that night. For the first time in his life, Victor Langston wasn't thinking about what he owned. He was thinking about what he owed. And somewhere deep inside, a quiet question formed, one that would define what came next. How many more Elis were out there, waiting for someone to come back? The answer would change everything. The city did not sleep that night. Neither did Victor Langston. He stood barefoot on the cold marble floor of his penthouse at 3:17 a.m., watching traffic crawl like glowing veins far below. For the first time since resigning as CEO, no calendar reminder buzzed, no assistant waited outside, no emergency demanded his signature. Silence wrapped around him, and inside that silence, something unfamiliar stirred. Guilt, not the polished kind he donated away with checks and galas, but the raw, aching kind that asked questions money couldn't silence. How many bags had he lost without realizing it? How many children had seen them and looked away unnoticed? The next weeks unfolded like a storm Victor had willingly walked into. The Langston Integrity Initiative exploded beyond projections. Thousands of applications poured in, stories of janitors, drivers, cafeteria workers, security guards. People who had spent decades invisible suddenly found themselves seen. Victor insisted on reviewing letters personally. One stopped him cold. It was written in uneven handwriting. Clearly a child's. "Dear Mr. Langston, my mom cleans offices like Eli's mom. She says people like you don't read letters. But I think you do because you read Eli's. I found a wallet once and returned it too. Nobody cared. I still think it was right." From Noah, age 9*. Victor closed the file and pressed his palm against his eyes. He cared now. And that realization hurt more than any loss he'd ever absorbed. Mara's first day in her new role arrived quietly. No cameras. No announcements. She wore a simple blouse and borrowed blazer, hands trembling as she stepped into the same building she'd once scrubbed at after midnight. But this time, people looked up. Some smiled, some didn't. Change never arrived politely. Victor met her not in a boardroom, but in the cafeteria. I don't know how to do this, Mara admitted, gripping her coffee cup. I've never managed anyone. Victor nodded. Neither had I just pretended confidence until it became habit. She hesitated. Why are you really doing this? Victor didn't answer immediately. Because your son reminded me what I traded away, he said finally. And because if this doesn't work, then everything I built is a lie. Mara studied him, then nodded once. Then we make it work. They shook hands, not billionaire and employee, not benefactor and charity, but equals bound by responsibility. Eli's life changed too, but not in the way people assumed. Yes. The fridge was full now. Yes, his mom smiled more. Yes, there were new shoes, but the attention followed him everywhere. At school, kids whispered. Some admired him. Others mocked him. Rich boy hero. One sneered. Eli came home quiet one afternoon and pushed his homework aside. Mom, he asked softly, did I do something bad? Mara knelt in front of him instantly. Why would you think that? Because people keep saying I changed things, he said. I didn't mean to. Mara pulled him into her arms. Doing the right thing doesn't ask for permission, she whispered. It just asks for courage. That night, Eli wrote in his notebook, if I find money again, I will return it. Even if nobody claps. The backlash arrived soon after. An anonymous whistleblower accused Victor of staging the entire incident. Old lawsuits resurfaced. Former partners spoke to tabloids, eager to drag him down. Stock prices dipped. The new CEO called Victor urgently. If you don't distance yourself, this could destroy the company. Victor listened calmly. Then let it be destroyed, he said. If it can't survive honesty, it doesn't deserve survival. The line went silent. One rainy afternoon, Victor visited the park again. Same bench. Same trees. Different world. A small plaque had been installed without his knowledge. Integrity is not found. It is chosen. Victor smiled faintly. He sat, hands folded, watching children run past. A boy tripped. Another helped him up. No cameras. No headlines. Just quiet proof that the world still worked sometimes. Voice interrupted his thoughts. Sir? Victor turned. A man stood there, worn jacket, tired eyes. You don't know me, the man said, but I saw what you did. For the boy. For his mom. Victor waited. I returned something once too, the man continued. Lost my job for it. I was told honesty doesn't pay. Victor stood slowly. It should. The man laughed bitterly. It didn't. Victor reached into his pocket and handed him a card. No logo, just a number. Call this, Victor said. Not because you deserve charity, but because you deserve fairness. The man stared at the card as if it might disappear. Why? He asked. Victor looked back at the park. Because a child taught me to come back. Months later, the initiative expanded globally. Quietly, relentlessly. Victor refused awards. Declined interviews. His wealth shrank, but his life expanded. On Eli's 10th birthday, Victor received an envelope. Inside was a crayon drawing, a park bench, a bag, 2 stick figures. One tall, one small. Below it, words spelled carefully. Thank you for not forgetting. Victor framed it. Not in his office. But at home. Years later. Long after the headlines faded, long after people stopped arguing about motives and money. The story remained but changed. It was no longer about a billionaire. Or a bag of cash. Or even a boy. It became a story parents told their Children when explaining why honesty matters. Why? Returning what isn't yours is an act of courage. Why doing the right thing may not make you rich, but it might make you whole. And somewhere in the city, on an ordinary bench in an ordinary park, the echo of one small choice continued to ripple outward, quietly rewriting lives, one decision at a time.